Recently, I've been catching up on Invincible. While I love the show, there's some characters that deeply fucking anger me. Like, I get that's to some extent the point, right? To evoke emotion. But a good handful of them just act like they have a goddamn brain tumor. And she's like 3 of them. But after watching the newest episode, it seems like we have some solid competition. You see, this is Scott Duvall, a Pentagon scientist who happens to have a low-level energy manipulation power. And that is important because he uses the Pentagon's technology in order to enhance his weak-ass power. Bro starts crashing out in public, out here resisting arrests, and other heinous crimes, all in order to kill Invincible. Now, why would he do that, you might ask? It's because his sister and niece were casualties in the father-son battle, which at first is understandable, but then you realize, oh, this nigga's just insane. Now, first of all, they show us the scene where he sees that his niece is actually dead. It's as if he just pretends he doesn't see Mark getting his ass beat with left-right combos. Like, Mark was getting his shit minked for an entire, hour, filmed on every single news station around the globe. In fact, they show us the clip of him watching the goddamn train scene. Like, I don't understand how you could see somebody get hit with an literal Mortal Kombat fatality. There was a news helicopter at the site when Mark was getting his shit stuck. Did he not see that crash course in critical thinking that Omni-Man just gave his son? Okay, but to some extent, that could be forgiven, you know? Obviously, bro is mentally unstable. But then bro brings the tech home to then enhance his powers, like I told you before, and you see his wife, and somehow this bitch is even more deranged. Before I tell you anything about her, just look at her. Look at her face. Look at her face. Tells you most of all you need to know. So Scott's powers work via kinetic energy. He transfers kinetic energy from impact force into pure energy. Thus, for his powers to be charged, he needs to be hit, preferably hard. So to make sure that the power enhancements are actually working, Shotty pulls out a sledgehammer and starts beating his chest in. Do you really hear me right now, bro? Like, ask your wife to hit you in the chest with a sledgehammer. Regardless if you have powers or not, if she says yes, you need to look for a new wife. As soon as she charges up his circuits, he lets off a little bolt to test if it was working, and the baby is literally screaming in the background. How long do you think it takes them to actually check on the child? Trick question, they don't. Instead, have a quasi-emotional breakdown before cutting to the next scene. I really hope all the foreshadowing is lining up. So now that he knows his power enhancements actually work, what's the best way to get to Invincible? Be a public nuisance. So he tries to have a little Miles Morales moment, jump off a building, and it was a very impressive landing. But every single action he takes after this point, kinda lame. Let me explain. Now, his idea of causing a public disturbance is just acting like a Walmart crackhead, and honestly, not a bad plan. Very disruptive. But Mark is on a double date with fucking Satan, so he kind of just ignores that nigga on the news yelling Invincible every 4 seconds. Though, obviously, someone needs to stop him. So the bum-ass Guardians of the Globe send Shapesmith, and he tries to de-escalate the situation before it just devolves into clowning. Powerplex is just eating haymakers, where he gets just enough charge to let off a sneak shot. And after he knocks Shapesmith out, all he has to say for himself is, "Did I do that?" Fast forward to later, and the city is having a memorial for all the people who died in the battle for New York. This nigga has to call Invincible out once again.
Come and face justice for the lives you've taken. Come and face powerplex.
Thanks for that, Jesse Pinkman. But does he get to fight Invincible? Absolutely not. Adam Eve takes the light work for herself. And it's a slight struggle until she figures out that he gets his power from being hit. So she just bungee gumps his shit to the pavement, and yet again he has been clowned. We got a Hall of Fame bozo. Almost as dumb as what he does next. So in the transport vehicle, he uses the turbulence in the back to charge up his power, which he uses to cause a car crash to escape back to his crazy ass wife. Now, having failed twice, do you think he gives up? Of course not. He uses his wife and child as hostages in order to get Invincible to meet him at a abandoned skyscraper. He drags Mark all the way there and gives us the Bane speech for the 3rd fucking time. And Mark is desperately just trying not to cave his chest in. So when he goes over to save the hostages, you know, this guy's wife and child, he says,
"What? You'll kill me? Like you killed everyone else?
And understandably gets backhanded. Day is saved. Shit's over, right? But when Mark goes over to untie the hostages, Pookie Bear hucks a loogie onto his face. And then he gets gripped up. If falling off a building gives him enough energy to almost kill Shapesmith, how much power can he get from a Viltrumite's punch? Well, apparently, enough to atomize his wife and child, which, of course, he blames Invincible for once again. You can't make this shit up. Bro has to win an honorary Darwin Award, and he just gets cuddled until he runs out of energy. And who does he blame for this incident? This monumental L. Do you think it's himself for creating a field of electricity that kills his wife and child? Of course not. He blames Invincible.
My wife and child are dead. All because of you.
He even tries to get his lick in after the Invincible War, which, hey, a little bit more of a justified crash out, but this nigga seems to just create his own problems. You can't just go about your 5 stages of grief like everybody else. You gotta hatch this evil scheme to do absolutely nothing. But I think I've convinced you enough that he's almost as dumb as Amber. Almost.